Happy coding.
Hey there, happy coders. It has been a long time no see. Well, depends on whether you're in my class or not, I guess. But it's been a while since I've done one of these just kind of random code along videos. I have lots of reasons for that are probably boring and I won't get too into them, but I've been teaching classes. I've been moving to Oregon, so you can't tell because of the sort of green screen effect here, but the background's different now, so that's, something. So there's just been a lot going on, but I have carved out some time here to play with the project, so that's what we're going to do. So yeah, without further ado, I'll say that something I've been thinking about lately is how to talk about machine learning. And I wanted to come up with a simple, I don't like that term, but a project that uses like the fundamentals of Java without using a ton of math or sort of low level sort of machine learning concepts, but gets at some of the interesting things about machine learning. So I'm doing this as maybe like a precursor to talking about machine learning. And so you might have heard of things like ChatGPT or Google's Bard, or every big tech company now has their own large language model. So I want to start at a different level, and I want to talk about something called a Markov chain, which is the way I think about it. It's a small language model. So you can use Markov chains for lots of things, and you can read all about it on Wikipedia if you want to. There's some math involved that I am not going to touch at all. But the idea is that Markov chains model like changing states that lead from one state to another, and that's pretty vague, and that's good enough for us. Because the way I am going to use it, or the way that it is commonly used, is to map a set of text, so just a bunch of text, into a Markov process, which means you map words to words that come after those words. You'll see what I mean in a second, but these are pretty common with like old school chatbots, or old school, like you might have seen. I programmed an AI to read the script and then it came up with this thing, stuff like that, like goofy little projects like that. Often have used Markov chains behind the scenes. So that's what we are going to do. But to make it kind of fun and interesting, and honestly, just because I think it'll be funny, I am going to create a Markov chain model out of Taylor Swift lyrics. So I am a pretty big Taylor Swift fan. And she has lots of songs, and I figure it's going to be a good amount of text to train a simple model on. And what we will be able to do at the end is ask the model for new songs that sound sorta, kinda like Taylor Swift songs. They won't really match up, and that's part of the fun. So yeah, that's my goal. I'm going to create a Markov model, Markov chain model, train it on Taylor Swift lyrics, and then come up with new Taylor Swift songs. So that's the goal. All right. So in preparation for this project, I just typed into DuckDuckGo text file containing all Taylor Swift lyrics, because I didn't want to go through and like manually create that file myself. I just wanted someone else to have done it for me. And the internet is sometimes a horrifying place, but it also sometimes is a wonderful place. So there is this project, the Taylor Swift Lyric Searcher. This is an open source project put together by Sheena Kathari. Thank you, Sheena, for doing this and for giving us the data that you used behind the scenes. So you can search, whatever you want. So I can type hey, whatever, and I can search, and lots of results. And the way this works behind the scenes, and Shane was nice enough to give us the data. So you can go to her GitHub page and click around, but eventually you get this file, which is just a big file of Taylor Swift lyrics. it contains a bunch of other stuff like the song title, the album it's on and stuff. And I think for my purposes, I don't really care about that stuff. So all I have done so far is copy this over into a Google spreadsheet, delete all of the columns in that file that I don't care about, and then downloaded it as its own text file. So I have that just on my desktop here. I can open that up with good old-fashioned Notepad, and here it is. It's just a text file that contains all of Taylor Swift's lyrics. You could do this same exact thing with, a movie script or, your own chat messages or something like that, like historical speeches maybe. As long as it's just a big text file, it's all good. So this is a bunch of lines from all of Taylor Swift's songs, and it contains 9,137 lines. I don't know if you can see that. It's down at the bottom somewhere. Down there, yeah. Okay, so that's all I've got. All right, let's see. All right, so now I need to write some code that takes in this file, builds a Markov model, and then outputs some new stuff from it. All right, cool. Let's try. All right, let me close this and open up IntelliJ. And I am going to give my project a name. I'll just call it like, I don't know, Markov Taylor. I need to click new project. It's been a minute since I have coded in Java or in IntelliJ, so you're going to see me be a little bit rusty. I'm going to call it like, I don't know, Taylor Swift Markov model. And let's see, so language is Java, build system. I don't really need to build anything other than like the file itself that I'm going to create. Maybe I'll have a couple Java files, but I'm not going to have any dependencies, I don't think. So I'm just going to hit create. And okay, I've got my project here. It's a little small. Is there a way to make this bigger? No. Well, sorry, that's small, but hopefully in a second I'll just open up some code anyway. So let me create a new Java class. Let's call this io.happycoding. Like Taylor Swift main. Yeah, sure. And yeah, okay, I've got some Java. My computer's getting really upset with me because I'm trying to do too many things at once. But that's okay. All right, how do I make this bigger? Alt Shift this one. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so hopefully you can see that, but if not, hit the full screen button or something. And so this is going to be my main driver of the program. So I'm going to need like a public static void main string args function. And for now, I'm just going to like print out something, system.out.println, hello, Taylor. And I'm going to run this. And okay, there we go. We get hello, Taylor. Okay, cool. So from here, what do I want to do? So actually, what I should do, I meant to do this before I opened up any code editor. I meant to sort of explain the Markov model process. So let me go back and do that. So how do I want to do this? Let me open up Notepad again. Notepad, come back. And so, okay, I'm going to start with just something that's a little bit easier than all of Taylor Swift's entire discography. I'm going to start with like the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Okay. And maybe I have a couple sentences. Maybe I have like the fox jumps over the dog jumps the fence, and maybe that's good enough. So I just have 3 sentences here. And you can imagine that I have many more sentences, but just for the sake of getting something sort of that I can deal with manually, I'm just going to start with these 3. So what a Markov chain model does is look at each word, and then it builds up a mapping, basically, of for each word, what words come after that word. So I could start just by looking at each word. So the, what comes after the? Well, quick does. And now we get into a question of, do we care about capitalization? So does lazy come after the? Because I have the and lazy. And this is a choice. This is a stylistic choice. It's up to you what you end up doing. But I think for my purposes, I'm going to sort of treat capital words and lowercase words as two different words. Totally up to you. But for simplicity, that's what I'm going to do. So, okay, now I'm going to just keep looking for other words that come after the. So I've got fox here, fox, and I've got dog here. Okay, so what comes after quick? And actually, maybe I want to change my example just a little bit. Nah, you know what? I'm going to just keep it the same. We'll see how it goes. So what comes after quick? Well, brown comes after quick, and I think that might be the only time I use quick. Maybe it's a silly example, but okay. What comes after brown? Well, fox comes after brown. So I've got fox. And is that the only time I see brown? Yeah, okay. Maybe I should have had a better example, but it's okay. What comes after fox? Well, I've got jumps here and I've got jumps here. So I've got jumps twice. So I'm going to put like a little 2 next to there. And now what comes after jumps? Well, over comes after jumps, over. And actually over comes after jumps twice. So I have 2 overs, jumps over, jumps over. And I have this. I just have a the here. So I have just the. Okay, so where am I? I'm here. I'm at over. So what comes after over? I think it's always going to be a the. So I've got the, I think twice, over the, yeah. So 2 times, and I'm going to keep going. So what comes after lowercase the? Well, I have lazy here, I have dog here, and I have fence here. So lazy, dog, and fence. Let me give myself some white space. Lazy, dog, and fence. And you see that all I'm really doing is coming up with a list of words and what words come after them. So let me finish this up real quick. I've got dog. What comes after dog? Well, the end of the sentence is maybe something I want to track. So I could track this as like maybe a new line or something, or maybe I just say dot. You know, it's kind of up to me, but I'll just say like new line. Or I could maybe say a period comes after dog. So maybe that's the end of the sentence pretty often. Actually, that happens twice. So I'm going to say twice. And dog, I also have jumps comes after dog. So jumps. Okay. So then a lot of these I've already done. So I already did capital the, I already did fox, I already did jumps, I already did over, I already did the, I already did dog. So I think I have all of these except for fence. Fence just has a new line after it. Okay, so you see that the end result is like a rearranging of the input text. It sort of dissects the input, and instead of saving every single sentence that the model has seen, what the model saves is the mapping. So it's actually not possible to go from the mapping back to the original sentences because I haven't saved those sentences anywhere. Well, you know, I wrote them up here, but the model itself just knows for the, well, these are the words that came after it. For jumps, over came twice and the came once. And so what this lets me do is I can ask the model to build me new sentences based on the mapping. And oftentimes this ends up being kind of nonsensical because there's no notion of like grammar or like logic here. It's purely based on what has the model seen. So I can maybe start the model off and I can say, let's start a sentence with the, and I can ask the model to give me a random word from the mapping. So it's going to be either quick, fox, or dog. So let's say that this is, I don't know, let's say dog. I ask it, give me a random word that has followed the, and it gives me dog. And then what I do is I say, okay, now give me a random word that comes after dog. And well, here are my options. I have either a new line, which would be silly because it's just the whole sentence is the dog, but that will happen with a Markov chain unless you add like special handling. So let's say it gives me like jumps, and I can say what comes after jumps. It's over or the. Well, let's say it gave me the, because it's going to be random. It's going to be random based on how often each word has shown up. So over will roughly be about twice as often as the, but it's still random. So I could still get the one that's less likely. And then I repeat this process. So what comes after lowercase the? Well, let's say that I choose, I don't know, lazy. And then I say, okay, what comes after lazy? And maybe I forgot that, but I think it's only once, and it's dog. So whoops, lazy, dog. So it's just the same process, lazy, dog, and eventually I'll say, you know what, okay, that's enough words, you've given me enough. And the end result is a sentence that sounds like the input sentence is, but is often kind of unique and like not part of the input. So the dog jumps the lazy dog. That's not an input, but it does sound like the input. So that is a Markov model or Markov language model. And if you kind of squint or imagine, you can kind of start to recognize that the concepts that are used by these like Markov language models are sort of kind of similar to the more involved concepts of a large language model. So I'm taking some input, I am doing some processing of it, and you know what that processing is in a large language model is quite a bit more involved than what I just said, but the general idea of taking some input and processing it and then storing it in some other format that is the same. So the sort of interesting thing is that the model does not save all of the input. Like the model isn't saving every single sentence I showed it. When I build one out of Taylor Swift lyrics, it's not going to store every single Taylor Swift lyric. And when like ChatGPT trains itself on the entire internet, it's not storing the entire internet. It's storing some kind of representation of that input that it can then use. So anyway, all of that to say, that's that's what we're going to do with code. I should have started with that before I started opening up IntelliJ, but that's the sort of idea here. Okay, so I've got my goal, and I've got my main method here. So far, I just print out hello Taylor. I think what I want to do is I want to create it's just a simpler file, like that Taylor Swift file that's just like every single Taylor Swift lyric. That's really complicated, and it has 9,137 lines in it. It's got like quotation marks, it's got all kinds of stuff. I think what I want to do is start with a simpler file just to get the process sort of working, and then I'll try to feed in the big file. So let me create a new text file, new file, sure, whatever. And I'll call it, I don't know, simple.txt. Sure. And I'll just actually copy in my examples from over here. Okay. So all I'm doing is creating a separate file that has just fewer sentences in it. So I'm just going to worry about these 3 lines, build a Markov model out of that, and then double check that my logic works. Okay. So what do I want to do? I need to read that file in and read each line of that file in. I'm kind of debating, like, do I want to make this a class that has an instance? You know what? Yeah, let's do it. So I'll have, do I need a constructor? Maybe not, but I will have maybe like I don't know, maybe a private void read file function. And what will this do? This will read in the file, right? All right, so I could try to pretend to remember how to do this stuff off the top of my head, but I don't. So let me just Google it or DuckDuckGo it. Java read in file. Let's see, read a text file in Java. That looks promising. And I think it's a one-liner. Like I'm looking for like, I think it's like files dot read. Yeah, this one. Files dot read lines. Yeah, this thing. So this, wait, file. Oh, this is from Apache. No, there is a one-liner in Java these days. Like I don't want to go through all the rigmarole of a bunch of like buffered reader, blah blah blah, all that stuff. Java, you are killing me. I think files.read all lines is what I want. So let me just do that. Java files.read all lines. Yeah. Yeah. All right. I think I'm just going to try something. So I think it's files.read all lines, and then I give it like the path. So let's just do that and see if IntelliJ yells at me, or see what IntelliJ yells at me about. So I'm going to say this is something like, I'm just going to type it, files.read all lines. Ooh, that's nice, IntelliJ. Thank you for your autocomplete. And it's either path or path. Okay, which one's which? Oh, path or char set. Just a path. Okay. So here I want like path.of, I think, and then I can just give it a string. Is that right? We're going to find out. Simple.txt. And I'm going to need some imports. Be cool, be cool, be cool. And this is going to throw an exception, but maybe I'll just, oh man, it's so annoying. Surround with try catch, sure. Okay, so this will read all the lines. This gives me a list of strings. So it's, in my simple case, it's just going to give me all of the strings. So let's actually just return the whole thing, list string. And I'm going to try to return that, and otherwise I'll just return null. Actually, I won't return anything because of that throw. Right. Okay. And wow. Import. Okay. So I've got my read file, maybe I'll say read all lines, whatever, read file. So I'll just store that in a variable back up in my main. Yeah, sure, why not? There's a few ways I could structure this, but just to get something working, I'll say lines equals read file. Okay, and just to see if that works, I'll say system.out.println. Actually, I'll just print out lines. And you want to be static? Yeah, okay, this is where it's getting at. Like, do I want to make this like a non-static, like sort of processor? And you know what? I do. I'm going to be annoying about it. So Taylor Swift main equals new Taylor Swift main. This will let me like have like, instance variables up there. So I'll say main.read file. Maybe I should move all of this into like a process function. So yeah, maybe I'll do that. Private void process, whatever. And I'll move all this in there. And I'll call main.process. Okay, I'm just moving my code so that I don't have to fight with static stuff the entire time. I could make every function static, but that feels gross to me. So instead I will do it this way. All right, so maybe get rid of that one. All right, let's just run this and see what breaks. I'm kind of guessing that this won't work right, but let's find out. And yep, not surprisingly, no such file exception, simple.txt. So I put it in my source directory. I think maybe it needs to be in the top level directory of this file. I don't know. This is, yeah, just refactor. This is just IntelliJ being annoying. Where is that? Is that okay, that's up there in simple.txt is up at the top level of my my project here. I think that's where it needs to be. Let's find out. Yeah, it goes. All right, cool. So this print statement is from here. So my lines are being read. It's all three of them. I was kind of thinking like maybe it wouldn't read this one. Maybe I needed a new line, but I actually don't. It's smart enough to do that. So, okay, cool. It gets all three lines. Cool. So I've got all 3 lines. What do I need to do next? Now, for each line, I need to process each line. I need to like split it up into individual words and then add those words to maybe a mapping. So to do that, this is a little bit silly, but I'm going to say like process lines. Yeah, maybe process lines. And then this will have maybe another helper that says private void process single line, process line. And maybe I'll say, I'll take the line, string line. Okay. So instead of printing it out, what I'll do is for string line in lines, then process line, line. And yeah, I guess I should probably spell string right. That's a pro coding tip. Spell string correctly. Oh boy. Okay, so now I'm calling process line, and the way I work, honestly, is I work super iteratively. I add one little thing at a time, and I just double check that it works the way I think it does. So all I've done so far is call process line for each line, and I'm just going to print out each line. And that seems to work. But if it didn't, I would know that it's like, something suspicious in the 3 lines of code I just wrote versus writing 100 lines of code and then being like, oh, it doesn't work. How do I fix it? It's a lot easier to fix if you test it in small doses like that. Okay, so I've got my process line function. And next, here's where I think for the real file, actually, let me maybe move that file into IntelliJ so I can kind of switch back and forth without switching windows 100 times. Where'd that go? Taylor Swift lyrics, you're going in here. Sure. Yeah, that's funny. Copy. It moves it. I thought it would just copy it, but that's fine. Okay, so now I can just kind of open it up in IntelliJ. So for the real thing, when I get to each line, I'm going to have to do some extra processing because some of them have quotation marks. There's probably weird stuff in here. I mean, it's just a data file, and data is often sort of formatted in ways that are not like perfect. So I'm probably going to have to do something with these. But for now, maybe I won't worry about it. I'll just focus on these. Actually, maybe I'll give myself a hard time. Maybe I'll add like a quotation mark here. Let me worry about that in a second. Let's just actually process the line as we have them. So what I'm going to need to do is break the line up into its individual words and then do something for each word. Probably create some kind of mapping. So let me do that. So I'm going to say string words equals line.split, and I want to split on what? On white space, on any white space. So I think the regex for that is //s. So this is saying anytime you see a white space, break the string on that. So here it's going to say like split on these spaces. So I'm going to have an array with the fox as 2 like separate elements in the array, jumps over the dog. Like that's going to break it up into an array. The dog word will contain the period. And this again is personal preference. You might strip that out. You might get rid of punctuation. You might treat punctuation as its own word. Kind of up to you. But for me, I think I'm going to just leave it as the dot. Okay. So I've got my array of words, and what I want to do is process each word. So I'm thinking about how I want to do this. I might create like a hash map of like words to their next words, but actually what I need is like a word to like a list of words. I'm trying to create like the data structure for this map, but it's actually even more complicated than that because it's like counts of words. So there's a bunch of ways that I could do this. I could just stick with like, I don't know, hash map with a key of a word, and then the value would be whatever words have come after that. I could just do it like an array list basically a value, and I would add every value to my array list. And I think that would work. But it would end up sort of repeating some work. Like I'd store the same word a bunch of times in that same array list. So for like, I don't know, for jumps here, like, jumps is in here twice. So instead of storing jumps, I could store jumps too. For this example, that's it's a little bit contrived, but for Taylor Swift lyrics, when I read in all 9,137 lines or however many it is, there will likely be words that show up, dozens of times, one after the other. So for those, do I want to store the same word dozens of times, or do I want to store just like the int count? So I'm honestly 50-50. So if you're coding by yourself, I think it's totally valid to store it as a list. I think that would work, and I think it would be kind of less code probably. But for me, I'm going to be a little bit annoying about it. I'm also kind of thinking forward to maybe eventually I want to use whatever code I come up with for other things. So, tonight's all about Taylor Swift lyrics, but maybe eventually I put in like, maybe a Halloween movie or something, and I generate a new Halloween movie. So I want to have like my code be relatively sort of, I don't know, clean, so that I can pull it into another project later. But you do you. So anyway, all of that said, I think what I will do is I'll create a new class, and I'll put some of the logic in that next class, and that'll help me sort of organize my code. So I'm going to call this, I don't know, like Markov model. And what will this thing have? This thing will have one function. So public void, like add word pairing, or add word pair. And it's going to have string first word, string second word. And I haven't actually created that yet. I haven't implemented it in code, but what I want to do is create an instance of that class, Markov model equals new Markov model. Okay. And here I can use that model to process my array. So I'm going to just kick the logic down the road a little bit. So I'm going to start with just a good old-fashioned for loop. So I almost typed let I. I'm so used to like TypeScript stuff. For int I equals 0, right? Yeah. I is less than words dot, and I'm thinking about this because I think this needs to be words dot length -1, because I actually don't want to go all the way to the end of the file, because what I'm going to do is take each word and its next word. So for that, I want to go to length -1. Yeah, okay. And then I++. I'm a little suspicious because when I do things like this, there might be an off by one error. So if something weird happens, I'll come back and be suspicious of this line. But for now, I think that's right. And then what do I want to do? I want to say model.add word pair, words of I and words of I+1. So I'm adding each word and its next word. I haven't actually written that code yet, but I'm assuming it's there. So for this one, I'm saying the and quick. That's the first word and the second word. Quick and brown. That's the first word and the second word. Brown and fox. That's the first word and the second word. Basically, I'm going to write code that does the exact same thing as I did sort of manually here. Okay. And what else do I want to do? I think for now, I'm going to maybe say that's enough. There are some other things I will want to do once I get to the Taylor Swift lyrics, but for now, I think this is getting close. Okay, so I've got my process line function done, and all it does is say model.add word pair for each word pair. Okay, that was silly. So now I need to actually code that up. Okay, so back in here in add word pair, this is now a class that I can use to sort of encapsulate my logic. So what am I going to do? I'm going to have a hash map from the first word, so from a string to what? And I've got some options here. And this is what I was talking about earlier, where I think I could get away with using a list here, list of string, and then straight up just add every mapping that I can find to that list. I'm honestly really tempted to do it this way because I think it'll kind of simplify my code down the road. But I'm wondering if it'll bite me anywhere. So it's not super efficient, but I think it'll work, and I think it'll be relatively, it'll be a little easier to understand than if I'm like keeping track of counts. I'm torn. I think for now I am going to do it this way. This is, I think, the way that's probably easier to understand, and whatever. It's my YouTube channel. I can do what I want. Yeah, okay. Maybe I'll come back and add like the smarter way to do this with counts, but for now I'm just yeah, I'm gonna do it this way. And I'm gonna call this, I don't know, like word map. And I'm gonna create this as a new hash map. And yeah, and I'm going to be a little bit annoying and say this is just a map because I don't actually care about what type it is. Okay. So, okay, I'm going to the interface now, but it's a hash map and it's all good. Okay, so what I need to do is first I need to check, is this the first time that I'm seeing this first word? And if it is, then I need to add a array list to the map. So I'm going to say, if my word map does not contain the key first word, then I want to add a new array list to it, right? Yeah. So word map dot put. Actually, now that I'm thinking about this, there might be a simpler way to do this with get or default, but no, I'm just going to do it this way. Dot put first word. So my key is my first word, and my value is a new array list. And I don't know if generics are going to be smart enough to figure that out, but let's find out in a second. And it is. Okay. So now I know that my word map definitely contains an array list for that value. So I can say word map dot get first word dot add second word. Yeah. So now I'm saying, hey, model, hey, this model, find the list for the current word and add my second word to it, exactly like I was doing in this sort of Scratch file, just manually. Yeah. Okay. So I am a little bit flabbergasted that the code is that short. I was like ready for some complicated, like, oh, I gotta keep track of counts, and then later I'm going to have to do like a weighted, like random number to figure out what word I want, but I'm feeling pretty good about this. I think this will work. Famous last words. Now it won't. Okay, but now going back up a level to my main class here. I've got Taylor Swift main. I've got process lines. Process lines calls process single line here. And now what do I want to do? I want to, you know what I want to do? I want to print this whole thing out. So I want to say like, I don't know, I'm going to say like main.debug print maybe. Or maybe I could have like a two-string function, but whatever. I'm just going to have a debug print just because I want to print out these mappings. So create debug print. I want model.debug print. That's what I want. Okay. Okay. So debug print is just going to be my little handy function where I print stuff out. Okay. Okay, so what do I want to do? I think I just want to print out this whole map. Can I get away with that? Maybe. System.out.println, that whole thing. Word map. I think the formatting will be a little bit gross. And annoying. Okay, so this is not static, so I'll just put it at the end of process lines for now. And okay, cool. So yeah, the formatting is a little goofy. So I have the, and what comes after the? Quick, fox, and dog. What comes after over? The, and the comes twice. So it's not like a count, but again, I think that's probably fine for our purposes. Traditionally you would save a count because, efficiency and stuff, but for us, yeah, I think it'll work. Okay, so that works. So then next, what do I want to do? I want to now be able to ask the model for next words. So I want to be able to say like string next word equals, oh, I can't put it there. Oh, yeah, static stuff is annoying. I'll just put it in a new function. My code's getting a little bit messy. I'll just put it down the bottom, whatever. So private void generate, I'll call it. Sure. And then I'll say main.generate. And then in the generate, that's where I'll say string next word equals model dot, I don't know, next word. And I want to give it a parameter of like the first word, and I want it to give me a random word from its mapping. So are you cool, IntelliJ? Are you cool? You're cool. And okay, here's what I want to do. I want to look in my map for this first word and return a random thing from its list. So first, maybe I'll be a little bit defensive and I'll say if my word map does not contain that first word, so I have never seen this word before, I don't know what should come after this, maybe I'll throw an illegal argument exception. No pair for first word. Okay. Otherwise, I can say list string like possible words or just words like words equals what? Equals word map dot get first word. So I'm asking for the list of words that come after this first word. So I'm asking for this level of my map. And then I can return a random element from that. I can say return words dot get, and then I need an index, and I need to remember how to do a random index in Java, and I think it's something like this: math.random times words.size. So if I have 10 words, if my size is 10, then I want to return a value between 0 and 9 for the indexes of those words. Math.random gives me a random number between 0 and 1, but it's never going to be 1. It'll get like to 0.9999999, but never quite 1. So again, if my words.size is 10, then that'll mean that this is between 0 and 9.99999, and then this int will truncate it back to 0 or 9 or 0 to 9. So I think this is right, but we're going to find out when I run this whole thing in a second. Okay, let's see. So let's just see what happens. So then let me also print this out, system.out.println next word. And okay, so back to my main function. My main creates an instance of this like main class, says process lines. Maybe I could just call that process or something. Yeah, I'm going to do that. And then it says to generate, and generate just asks for a single word and then prints it out. So let's just run this and see what happens. I sort of expect it to print out randomly quick, fox, or dog, but more likely it'll probably break, but let's see. And okay, I think I still have my debug print in there. Yeah, I do. So let me get rid of that. But yeah, I think it worked. So I've got fox, I've got quick, I've got dog, I've got fox again. Okay, so I think that actually is working, shockingly enough. So it's giving me random numbers from the list that is built from the. So it's quick, it's fox, and it's dog. So now I can ask for, I don't know, what comes after jumps, maybe. Yeah, let's see. Just to test something. Jumps. Jumps over, jumps over, jumps the. And I think that's right. Okay, cool. So the core like model is working. It is giving me next words based on the individual words. So now I need to sort of string up I need to repeat this multiple times. So how do I want to do this? Where do I want this to go? I think I'll put it in my main. I'm kind of debating, but I think this will be kind of specific for your file. So what you want to do afterwards will kind of depend on, on your file. So I'm not going to put it in my Markov model because that's just the core logic. Okay, so this is kind of specific to Taylor Swift, or in this case, specific to my example file. So next, I wanted to like string that up. So I'll say what I'll start with is, it's kind of up to me. Like, how long do I want my sentence to be? So I'll say like int sentence length equals, I don't know, maybe 5 words. I want 5 words. So what I can do is say for int I equals 0, I is less than sentence length, and then I plus plus. And what do I want to do? I want to do a couple of things. First, I want to like remember the previous word. So string previous word equals, and I'll start it out at the, and how do I want to print this out? I will say that I will print out the previous word here, system.out.print, previous word. It doesn't really matter because this will always be the, but whatever, just to get it working, I'll say previous word and then a space, which means that in my for loop here, I can get the next word and base it off of the previous word, and print that next word out. So print next word plus a space, just so I, am continuously printing. And then I need to say my previous word equals my next word, right? There are some things that won't work here, but let's just see if this works good enough. Kind of excited. It does work. The fox jumps over the fence. And I don't think that was in our input. It's not. So this is a new sentence that sounds sort of like our input, but was not in our input. So it's kind of new, and you can almost sort of kind of think about the model as like being creative, but it's purely based on some like barely math at this point. Okay, so let me just run this again because I do think I will get an error eventually. The dog jumps over the dog, the quick brown fox jumps over, and yeah, not every sentence is going to make sense because the model doesn't understand grammar or really anything. It's just going purely from what words it has seen. The quick brown fox jumps the. Okay, so maybe I'm getting lucky, but let me increase this. Let me try to generate like um, a longer sentence. And there you go. Okay, so I get the dog jumps the dog. It gets to dog, and then I get this illegal argument exception. No pair for dog. No pair for dog dot. And there are a few ways I could handle this. I could say, when I get to this case, when I don't know what comes next, then I'm done. And I just won't print anything after that. I could, add that logic. Or I could do something with maybe getting rid of the period, and maybe I would say, like either strip it out entirely or treat it as its own word, maybe, so that like dog would be followed by a word, and that word is just a period. I don't know. But because I know my end goal is these Taylor Swift lyrics, and lyrics are not just a single sentence, they are like line by line by line. So what I'm going to ask my generator for when I get to, the full thing is like a certain number of lines. And so what I need is a mapping that includes new lines. So how do I want to model that? So I think when I go here, when I process a single line, what do I want to do? What am I currently doing? I am currently splitting it into its individual words, and then I'm adding first word and second word pairs. First word, second word, first word, second word, first word, second word. So I need to do two things, I think. One, I need to add a mapping from whatever the last word was to a new line. So there's a couple of ways I could represent my new lines, but just to get something working, I'm going to say model dot add word pair, and my first word is going to be whatever the last word was. So words dot length -1, and my second word is going to be a new line. So I could have like some special handling, like where I do like new line in all capitals, or maybe there's some like, I don't know, brackets of, whatever. I could specially handle it, but I'm going to try to see if I can get away with straight up adding a new line, like special token character here, with this escape character thing. So I'm adding an additional pairing from my last word in the line to a new line. Okay. And then the next thing I want to do is add another pairing from a new line to my first word. So that looks like this: model.add word pair from new line to the first one, words of index 0. Okay. So now I'm going to run the exact same thing, and it's going to be slightly different based on randomness, but what I expect is when it gets to one of these words that showed up at the end of a line, it's going to add the new line, and that will be like the next word. And then the next word after the new line, in my case, will always be a the, because that's always what has followed a new line. But and then the process will repeat. So let's try that. Let's see. Yeah, and here you go. The fox jumps the dog, dot, and then it gets to, well, a new line, and then a space, because I'm always printing a space after the next line. So that's a little bit annoying, but I can add like special handling for that, no problem. But here you go. I get my new line, and let me increase this quite a bit. Let's go to like 100, because now I am hoping that as long as I give it a valid word here, it's never going to get itself in that situation where like it finds a word that nothing has ever followed, because at least a new line has always followed it. But let's just find out. And yeah, okay, cool. So I printed out 100 words. The dog jumps over the lazy dog, and then it gets to dog, finds a new line, space, kind of annoying, but whatever. goes until it gets to one of those ending words. And yeah, I think that works. It's beautiful. Um, okay, so just some like, I don't know, some quality of life improvements here. What I'll say is, let's see, do I want to always print a space? No, I only want to print a space if what? If my word was not a new line. So if not next word dot equals new line, then I will system dot out dot print a space. And I think that'll solve that little annoyance. Okay, and I do get to like, there's something weird with the ending because I'm just asking for 100 words regardless of, where we are in the current sentence. So the next quality of life thing I could do is, instead of saying sentence length, I'll say like, I don't know, like lines, like int line count, or lines wanted, or lines to print. I'll say lines to print equals not 100. Why not 100? Or you know what, let's do something reasonable. Let's say 5. And then what do I need? I need to change this a little bit. I need a current lines count, or lines count equals 0. And then I need to change this to a while loop. While lines count is less than lines to print. And then I can restructure this just a little bit. So, this is kind of annoying, but I'm just making it so that I can loop for however many lines I want versus however many words I want. Kind of up to you, kind of what your input contains that will decide like what makes sense here. But for me, I want to keep looping while I have not printed enough lines yet. So while lines count is less than lines to print, I am continuing this process. I'm detecting when I printed a new line, and in that case, I am increasing my count so that I can check, the next time it loops. Otherwise, I'm printing a space because I printed a word and I want to print a space there. Okay, so let's just check that this works. I should get 5 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, beautiful, excellent, wonderful. Okay, so let's see. What do I need to do next? I think I'm just about ready to unleash this on the actual file, the actual Taylor Swift file, which is really exciting for me. But first, I want to just double check a couple things. So I know there's a couple of weird things around like the actual file. So specifically, it's got these quotation marks. And this is because, like, I don't know how much you care, but the original file that I downloaded this from was a CSV file, and CSVs are comma separated value files. So it's a spreadsheet basically, where each column is separated by commas. However, since they're lyrics, the lyrics themselves can contain commas, and in a CSV file, you can't have that. You can't have a comma in the middle of a cell because it messes with it. So what you have to do instead is wrap the whole cell in quotation marks to indicate like ignore the commas inside of this because the commas are part of the data themselves. So what I need to do is process the lines in a way that don't care about those quotation marks. And I'm wondering, like, could I get away with just getting rid of them, just like removing them? What I'm looking for is I bet there's a case. I'm trying to scroll through the swear words. This is a PG channel. Sorry. But there are cases where there are quotation marks inside of the lyrics. Like here, like there's a quotation mark that starts here. And I think it's double quoted because I think that's just another CSV file thing. I think it's like an escape character. So it's like anytime now, this is the end of the whole line, but then here's the other quotation mark. Oof. I don't know if I feel like dealing with this, so I might just get rid of them. So yeah, I think I'm gonna get rid of them. The alternative is gross, and I don't feel like dealing with it. Um, and again, it's kind of up to you and what you care about and what you want to focus on and what you want in your output. For me, I think if my Taylor Swift like generated lyrics don't contain quotation marks, even if it's a quote, I think that's probably okay. So I'm going to test this out in my simple file. I am going to add a line with quotation marks. And first off, I'm just going to see what happens just to sort of demonstrate the grossness that I'm talking about. Yeah, and it's, it's not the end of the world, but in fact, I think I'm actually just getting the fox jumps over the dog. Yeah, I think I'm getting, it's a weird case because there's only a single instance of quotation mark the, and it always is followed by fox. Fox is always followed by jumps. So no, I'm not going to get the same thing every single time, I don't think. I thought I would, but I think there are other sort of possibilities. Yeah, here we go. The quick brown fox jumps the dog, and there's a quotation mark here, but there's not a quotation mark at the beginning. Here's the opposite. Here's a quotation mark at the beginning, but not one at the end. So yeah, it's just kind of messy, and I could maybe add special handling for it, but I think what I'm going to do is just get rid of it. So how do I want to do that? I think here I want to say, I want to do some processing here. I want to say like line equals line dot what? I want to replace. So I don't want replace all or just replace. I think just replace will work because I can get away with not using a regular expression. So line dot replace, and then in here I need a single a single double quotes and I'm going to replace it with nothing. So I'm saying every time you see a single double quote, replace it with the empty string. So just get rid of it. And that's going to replace all of them, not just the ones that are on the edges, but the whole thing. And good enough. So now if I do it, it will not have any quotation marks, even though my input does. And I could test this again with maybe I have like a quotation mark in here, and that should still, it should just not care because it got rid of them. Okay. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. So next, okay, I'm going back to the file and I'm wondering, like, is there anything else I need to care about here? Like these single quotes, I don't think they matter. Like, again, you can think about like how you want to handle punctuation. So like stairs, comma. Do you want to get rid of that comma so it's just stairs? For me, I think I'm not going to worry about it. But you could say like have an if statement in here that's like if the word you're trying to add contains a comma, then get rid of the comma, or maybe add the comma as its own mapping, as its own word, for example. That would be a relatively reasonable expansion of the logic. But for me, for now, I think let's just not care. Okay, so what I'm just scrolling through here to see if there's any other weirdness in the data, but I think what I will do is just unleash it. I'll just let it go. So to do that, what do I need to do? I need to read in that file. So that's going to be Taylor Swift lyrics.txt. And do I need to change anything else? So when I generate, I'm going to start it with the. I'm going to keep that for now, and I'm just going to ask for 5 lines. Actually, it's a song. Let's do 4 lines. It doesn't really matter, but let's do it that way. And I'm going to hit run. I'm going to see what happens. Okay, All right. Yes. It's beautiful. This is you know what? I'm going to call it an AI that has learned from all of Taylor Swift's songs and is now singing its own Taylor Swift song. So I will leave singing these lyrics as an exercise to the viewer. And you're welcome for that. But these are lyrics that sound sorta, kinda like Taylor Swift lyrics. So the kind of the last kiss may and whispered, Merry Christmas must have been left with me in that cuts. I'm not saying this is art. I'm not saying it's poetry, but it is definitely art and it is definitely poetry. So let me run this a few more times and just sort of see what it comes up with. Uh, the moment I mean, and my heart spinning in the plane was to, you'll be all right. Hey, where is A? Where is A in Taylor Swift's lyrics? That is so funny. Yeah, there is, and there's a in with parentheses. This is this a weird thing? Is there ever an A without those parentheses? Okay, there is actually. Um, Cool. What do I want to do here? I think what I want to do is, okay, I just want to hit play a couple more times. Um, the wound won't see what's under sparkling lights. We're keeping count. They say I was catching my feet. I'd meet me out there, never take up real. And again, Markov models don't understand grammar. They don't understand, it doesn't know that it's trying to play a song. It doesn't have any kind of real intelligence to it. It doesn't even like here, like this parenthesis, again, you could choose to do something different with this, but there's no logic saying like don't do things that are illegal in grammar. Like don't have like weird incomplete sentences. Like it's purely based off of what words came after which other words. So I think that's kind of fun and kind of charming. Oh, look at this huge line. That's interesting. Um, I'm also not limiting the length of lines. So there's some obvious things that you could change or improve pretty quickly. Um, it's certainly not perfect, but it's I don't know. This accomplishes my goal. Um, the highway don't want to go out, but baby, I never find it in your head is all went away, and to me, and I did a little town. She took him. That's so true, AI Taylor. That's so true. Okay, so from here, let's see. I just want to kind of play with this. So I'm always giving it the as my starter. I think what I'm going to try is I'm going to give it a new line as a starter. Which is saying, choose any of the random words that followed new line. So that's going to be, all 9,137 or however many there were, 37, yeah. So I'm saying start out with a random starting word rather than the. And so it'll be purely based on the AI's creativity, I'll call it. Oh, and I need to not print my space now. Okay, fine, fine, fine. And okay, here's some weirdness with the data. So I guess this is like a leftover from the scraping. So this is probably from a song where Zayn was also in it. So there's a few things I could do. I could straight up probably just like manually delete this from the input. So how many times is shown? Just once. So I could add some special handling to my code to get rid of this. I could, write a separate program that sanitizes my input, but I think for now I'll just get rid of it. Whoops. Um, so, depending on what you are using or what input text you're using, you might have some other weirdness in your data, but that's totally normal. Um, okay, so now it's based off of new line. So the first word is always going to be just some random first word from a Taylor Swift lyric. And I am so into this. It's not even funny. Um, You should have gone and his father's ambition, and I'll bet you're coming at Centennial Park. Miscommunications lead me, and that's the finish line. Yes, I truly love it. Um, okay, we're getting pretty close to what I would call, I don't know, this accomplished my goals. So let's recap. What have I done? What have I done? What have I created? I have unleashed AI Taylor Swift onto the world. It's incredible. I could just sit here for the next hour and just post random lyrics from this thing. But all right, let's take a step back and let's talk about what we did. Um, so what I did, first off, another huge thank you to um, Shayna here, who created this fun like Taylor Swift tool and put the data that she compiled on GitHub for anyone to use. So I wouldn't have been able to do this without this starter file. So thank you for that. So I took that, and what I did was I wrote a Java program that read in every line of that Taylor Swift file and built a Markov language model from it. So a Markov language model is, I like to call it like a small language model, as opposed to like ChatGPT or Bard, which are large language models, because 9,000 lines, while like kind of a lot, is not a lot compared to the entire internet. So we built a small language model, a Markov model, by remembering which words came after which words. So, it looks something like this, where each word has a list of words that follow it. So once you have that model, that list of words, you can ask it. You can prompt it with input words. So, you've seen a few examples of that. If you give it the, it'll give you whatever has followed the, and then you feed it back into itself. And for each input or output line, you use that as input into the next line. So that happens down here in generate, where we ask for the next word, and then we store it as the previous word and pass it back in the next time. And by doing that over and over again, you get this sort of AI generated Taylor Swift song in this case. So I don't know. I really like this. This is a lot of fun. I'm going to clean this code up a little bit before I post it, but I will post all of the code in a link down in the video description. So if you want to take this and play with it, you absolutely can. So creating your own text file out of something like a movie script, or I don't know, your own song lyrics from someone else. I don't know why you would need other song lyrics that aren't Taylor Swift, but I'll leave that decision up to you. Or chat messages that you have saved, really any text, Wikipedia articles, historic speeches. All of this is really great to feed into this kind of model and come up with these kind of goofy, kind of silly outputs that sort of kind of sound like the input, based off of just the patterns, just the words that come after the next words. Okay, so then to go like to the next level with this, what you might do is, so instead of focusing on one word that comes after one word, you could look at like two words, like what comes after two words. So what's the third word in a triple? So you would say, what comes after the quick? What comes after quick brown? What comes after brown fox? And this is a way to make your output start being a little bit more logical. So you're not just based off of a single word, you're based off of two or more words. So the bigger your input text is, the bigger your like tuples or triples or quadruples can be. So that's a pretty logical next step to improve. The other one is like other ways of handling punctuation. So for example, like I didn't really do anything with commas or dashes or parentheses or anything like that. So you could do something different. You could strip them out entirely. You could treat them as their own word. So stripping out the commas and saying comma is its own word instead of splitting by only white space. You could also split. Well, you could find out different ways to like check whether there's punctuation in a word. You could also do something like read in other files. And by that, I mean, it would be cool to read in like a synonym file. So you can find files that are things like, I don't know, list of English word synonyms. Synonyms is a hard word to spell. Synonyms words. Text file containing list of English word synonyms. Yeah, there's probably a smarter way to do that, but here you go. Lots of different results, or thesaurus is probably the word I was looking for. Like a thesaurus file would give you synonyms for words. So now you could have another bit of logic that says, you know what, randomly, like, I don't know, every 5 words or so, I am going to replace it with a synonym. So even if a word has not been present in your input, you can just add synonyms for words, like replace words with their synonyms, or something like a rhyming file. So text file containing list of English word rhymes. Is that, can I do that? Yeah, I don't know what this is. English words. Yeah, okay, maybe not. Text file. So, dictionary text file, there's many different files that you can find. Yeah, I think maybe the search query isn't great, but you can find rhyming files out there. In the same way that I found a random file of Taylor Swift lyrics, there are files that exist for other sort of information like that. So those are some other ways you might build on this code. And if you do, I would absolutely love to hear from you. So please either leave a comment in, down there in YouTube, or, find me on Mastodon, or the best thing that you can do is come to happycoding.io and come to our forum. This is where I hang out. This is where I post everything. So if you post here, I will absolutely see it and reply to you. So if you build your own Markov chain AI that does something else, I would love to see the output of that because it sparks so much joy for me. Okay, so to close this out, I am just going to hit the run button a few more times, and I'll leave you with the dulce tones of AI Taylor Swift. I love it. Ooh, look on to the way instead. Ooh, 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 oh. You my name and tie, I will echo your flight. Truly love it. Um, let's see. That one's sad. Lost tears and it all too late to go. I know. Baby, let it count. They didn't it, and no. All right. AI Taylor Swift is getting a little bit depressing, but that's okay. Sometimes that's the right thing to do. Luck of him someday, maybe get even here all along, and now you, ooh, oh, 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 oh. All right, I'm trying hard not to linger on the ones with swears, but I love it so much. All right, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to clean up the code and post it on happycoding.io. But thank you for joining me. I had a lot of fun. I'm glad I carved this time out, and I would love to hear from you. But until then, I will say thanks for watching. Have a very Taylor Swift rest of your day. And as always, of course, happy coding.